Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's to dig into the sources surrounding a really dramatic story. We're looking at the career, the ethical stand, and the legal battles of a former CIA officer.
That's right. This is someone who was deeply involved in counterterrorism, captured a major al-Qaeda figure, but then drew a line. He refused to participate in the U.S. enhanced interrogation program.
So the core question, the tension here is, what actually happens when a dedicated professional sees their own agency cross what they believe is a critical moral and legal line?
And the sources suggest the outcome was pretty severe. Institutional isolation, being branded, difficult, and eventually facing prosecution. It's really about the cost of conscience in that environment.
Okay, let's trace this back. The story really has roots in the pre-9/11 era, specifically Athens. A very dangerous posting, apparently.
Oh, absolutely critical context. The sources point out that the U.S. government spent more on security in Athens than anywhere else, more than Beirut even.
Wow. Why Athens?
Well, you had a mix of dangerous local groups like 17 Movember, Popular Revolutionary Struggle, and then the big international players. Abu Nidal, Libyans, PFLP, they all operated there quite freely.
And wasn't there some kind of understanding with the Greek government at the time, Papandreou's government?
Sort of an informal deal, yeah. The sources mention this understanding. If you don't kill Greeks, we'll essentially leave you alone.
Which, of course, put Americans right in the crosshairs. They were the unprotected targets.
Precisely. So that was his background, that high-threat environment. Then you fast forward to post-9/11. He's almost 13 years into his CIA career by then.
And he lands a huge role, head of counterterrorism operations in Pakistan, right at the center of the storm.
Exactly. The mission was incredibly urgent to find and grab al-Qaeda leaders fleeing Afghanistan.
People like bin Laden, Zawahiri, and Abu Zubaydah, who they thought at the time was maybe number 3 in the organization.
That hunt for Zubaydah, the sources detail, it took about 6 weeks. Very intense. Near misses described, like, finding a half-eaten sandwich, a cigarette still burning.
Really close calls.
Very close. And once they did capture Zubaydah, the CIA's compartmentalization, that need-to-know culture, it just slammed into place immediately.
Right, the capture team didn't know where he was going next.
And the team taking him didn't even know who he was initially. There's this one really telling story from the transfer itself.
Okay.
He's helping carry Zubaydah onto the plane, and his old boss shows up. Dressed all in black, hood up, the whole thing.
Dramatic.
Very. And the officer asks, where are we taking him? The boss just says, I came to take you prisoner, meaning Zubaydah. But I can't tell you where or why. You don't have a need to know.
Yeah, and then
the boss asks, so who is this prisoner? And the officer has to give the exact same answer back. Sir, I'm sorry, but you don't have the need to know.
That perfectly captures that intense, almost absurd level of secrecy, doesn't it? Mission first, information locked down.
Absolutely. And it's right after this huge success, this major capture, that everything changes for him personally. The agency asks him to, well, cross that line.
This is a turning point. May 2002, back at CIA headquarters, standing in the cafeteria, of all places.
Yeah, unbelievably casual. A senior colleague just asks him if he wants to get certified in the use of enhanced interrogation techniques.
And his reaction?
Instantaneous. He said, and this proved dead on accurate, that sounds exactly like a torture program.
Straight up, despite the assurances.
Oh, yeah. He was told, don't worry, it's cleared by the Justice Department, signed by the president. But he wasn't convinced. He went to talk to a trusted senior officer, someone really high up.
And that officer's advice?
It was blunt and chillingly accurate in hindsight. He said, look, this is a torture program, and torture is a slippery slope. Someone's going to kill a prisoner. Eventually, somebody's going to go to prison over this.
So they had these legal memos, the OLC memos, right? That was the supposed cover.
That was the fig leaf, exactly. The Office of Legal Counsel memos. They basically created this very technical, narrow definition of torture that aimed to keep interrogators out of legal trouble.
A kind of legal loophole.
Essentially, yeah. A veneer of legality that this officer saw right through from the start.
And the pushback for refusing. Because he was the only one, right?
Yep.
Out of 14 asked.
The only one who said no. And the consequences were immediate. Passed over for promotion, the head of the Counterterrorism Center actually wrote that he showed a shocking lack of commitment to counterterrorism.
Unbelievable. And he got a nickname for it.
Yeah, instantly branded. They started calling him the human rights guy. And the source is very clear. That was not a compliment inside the agency back then.
So let's talk about what these enhanced techniques actually were. The sources make some distinctions.
They do. There were things like a belly slap or an intention slap, which they tried to frame as just, minor physical pressure, not torture.
Okay. But then it escalated quickly.
Dramatically. Take the cold cell technique. The prisoner is stripped naked, chained to an eye bolt in the ceiling so they can't sit, kneel, or lie down.
Just constantly stressed.
Constantly. And the cell itself is chilled to about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 10 Celsius. And then, periodically, they douse the prisoner with ice water.
God. And people died from this.
The sources confirm it. At least 2 individuals died from hypothermia caused directly by the cold cell.
And sleep deprivation. That was another one.
Authorized for up to 12 straight days, which is, well, it's physiologically devastating.
How so?
People start losing cognitive function around day 7. Hallucinations, paranoia. By day 9, your vital organs can actually start shutting down.
And how did they keep people awake for that long?
Chained to that same eye bolt, often standing, blasted with industrial strength lights. And the sources mentioned playing death metal 24 hours a day on volume 11. Just constant sensory assault.
It's horrific. Which brings us to the crucial question. Did any of this cruelty actually work? Did it produce good intelligence?
The evidence in the sources is overwhelming. No. Unequivocally, none of the EITs were effective in gathering reliable, actionable intelligence.
And this contrasts sharply with what the FBI was doing initially, right?
Yeah, massively. Remember, 9/11 was initially an open criminal investigation, so the FBI had primacy at first.
And Agent Ali Soufan was getting results using completely different methods.
Totally different. Traditional rapport-based interrogation. Talking, offering coffee, an orange, letting Zubaydah write to his mother. Basic human interaction.
And this worked.
It yielded huge breakthroughs. Soufan got the entire al-Qaeda organizational chart from Zubaydah, how the cells were structured, compartmentalized, and critically, Zubaydah was the one who identified Mukhtar.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, KSM.
KSM.
That's 9/11 mastermind. That identification came from Soufan's non-coercive methods. That was the key piece of intelligence early on.
So if the FBI's approach was working, saving lives, why did the CIA push so hard to take over and immediately start using torture? It seems counterproductive. It boils down to bureaucratic infighting and, frankly, institutional ego. CIA leadership was reportedly furious that the FBI was succeeding where they felt they should be leading.
A turf war.
Pretty much. So, August 1st, 2002, CIA Director George Tenet goes to the White House, gets primacy back for the CIA.
And the FBI's reaction.
Immediate withdrawal. FBI Director Robert Mueller pulled all FBI personnel from the secret site, out of the country entirely, said they wouldn't be associated with torture.
And then the CIA started the EITs on Zubaydah.
Within 12 hours of the FBI leaving, waterboarding, the coffin with cockroaches, all of it. And Zubaydah, who had been talking to Soufan, he went completely silent.
So again, why continue if it wasn't working and was actively shutting down intelligence streams?
The sources really point to 2 main drivers, and neither is about getting good intel. First, there was this immense pressure, this desire for institutional revenge after 9/11. The agency felt humiliated by the worst intelligence failure in history label.
Trying to look tough, basically.
Look tough, get results, overcome the failure narrative. And second, and this is perhaps more cynical, money.
Money?
Yeah.
Right.
They'd signed this huge contract, $108 million, with these 2 outside psychologists, Mitchell and Jessen, who basically designed the EIT program.
So they had to justify the expense.
Exactly. It sounds crass, but there was a financial incentive to use the program they'd paid so much for, whether it worked or not. It turned human suffering into almost a contractual deliverable.
That's deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the officer eventually leaves the agency. He waits, hoping someone else speaks out.
5 years, according to the sources, nobody did. So finally, in 2007, he goes public. An interview with Brian Ross at ABC News.
And the backlash was immediate. President Bush himself called him a rogue CIA officer.
That was the signal. The officer knew right then the agency would try to pin the blame on him. The CIA filed a crimes report.
But the FBI initially didn't want to prosecute.
Right. Their initial argument was basically, torture is the crime here, and you can't classify evidence of a crime just to hide it from the public. But things changed politically.
With the new administration and John Brennan's involvement?
Yes. Brennan was Obama's deputy national security advisor for counterterrorism then, and discovery memos later showed his role. When the attorney general was hesitant about charging espionage, Brennan apparently pushed hard.
Say what?
The sources quote memos saying Brennan told the AG to charge him anyway and make him defend himself. Basically, use the legal process itself as punishment. Bankrupt him.
Which really speaks to that idea of the deep state, doesn't it?
It's a textbook example. You have these powerful, elected figures, career bureaucrats. The sources mention roles like the National Intelligence Officer for Warning, who served for decades.
And they believe they can outlast any elected president.
They often can. They can slow walk directives they dislike. They have immense institutional knowledge and power, and they're largely unaccountable to the public.
And in this case, it seems that power was used for a vendetta.
A personal and institutional vendetta, absolutely. Cloaked in national security language, but driven by something else.
So he ends up facing multiple felonies, potential 45 years. Takes a plea deal instead.
Yeah, for 30 months, served 23 in the end. But even then, the judge ordered him to a minimum security camp. Brennan apparently intervened again.
To make it harder.
To make his prison time, quote, as difficult as possible. He was deliberately sent to a low-medium security prison, which housed much more dangerous inmates.
And there were incidents inside. Attempts to set him up.
Really shocking stuff. The sources detailed 2 specific instances where guards apparently tried to incite violence against him.
Oh.
By telling other inmates, first an Iraqi terrorism suspect, then later the actual Taliban spokesman, who was also in prison there, that this former CIA officer had been ordered to kill them inside the prison.
Just completely fabricated, trying to start a fight or worse.
Clearly an attempt to get him injured, killed, or at least have his sentence extended for fighting. It's an unbelievable betrayal by the system.
How did he navigate that? Survive it?
Ironically, protection came from organized crime. The boss of the Bonanno crime family, who was also inside, apparently declared the officer was with the Italians.
Made him untouchable.
Essentially, yeah. Finding more honor among mobsters than within his own government circles. It's quite the indictment.
Then, just before his release, the Senate torture report drops. Massive vindication.
Huge. 6 weeks before he walked out, the report confirmed everything he'd been saying. The torture was brutal, it was illegal, and crucially, it didn't work. It was ineffective.
And people like Senator John McCain spoke up for him then.
McCain specifically credited him, said this officer was the reason the American people even knew about the torture program. But look at the contrast, the injustice.
How so?
The government spent, sources say, $6 million just prosecuting him and putting him in that prison. He faced 45 years for exposing torture. Meanwhile, you had a case of a CIA secretary who leaked identities that got agents killed in Ghana. She got 9 months.
The disparity is staggering, and life after prison wasn't easy either.
No, the felony conviction followed him. Rejected for jobs at McDonald's, Safeway, Uber, Target, basic employment, and his government pension. Gone forever.
Another layer of punishment.
Absolutely. But he did find other paths. He wrote books. One became a New York Times bestseller, won literary awards. He has a syndicated column now.
And he helped draft whistleblower laws.
Yeah, fascinatingly, he advised the Greek government on a whistleblower protection law, which then got adopted across the EU, turning his own negative experience into something positive elsewhere.
And his whole experience shifted his political views, too.
Completely. He left the Democratic Party, largely because of the actions under Obama and Brennan against him, now finds more common ground on civil liberties issues with populist Republicans, interestingly enough.
Before we wrap up, the sources mention his take on some current global issues, drawing from his intelligence background, like Netanyahu.
Yeah, his analysis is that Netanyahu has a vested political interest in prolonging the conflict in Gaza and the West Bank. A peace deal would mean his ongoing corruption trial resumes immediately. War keeps that at bay. He also notes Netanyahu's low actual popularity, never winning more than 27% of the vote.
Interesting. And China.
He sees China's main threat not as military, but as long-term economic strategy and patience. While the U.S. spends vast sums maintaining a global military presence, 190 bases in 144 countries, the source says China invests in infrastructure, builds economic ties, and uses its capital to gain influence, sometimes through bribery.
A different kind of power projection.
Exactly. And one final point he makes, which is quite alarming, relates to domestic propaganda here in the U.S.
Propaganda aimed at Americans. I thought that was illegal.
It was, but he points to a change slipped into the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, back in 2015.
What a change.
It effectively removed the old ban, stemming from the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, on the U.S. government producing and disseminating propaganda within the United States. Apparently, it started as a technical tweak related to Radio TV Marty for Cuba, but the effect was much broader.
So the government can now legally create and push propaganda onto its own citizens.
According to this analysis, yes, that legal barrier is gone.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize this. We've seen the sheer inhumanity of the EITs, the proof they didn't work, the fact they continued possibly for revenge or financial reasons, and this stark picture of unaccountable officials wielding immense power.
And that brings us to the final thought, the lingering question. It connects back to that unaccountable power, the deep state idea. This officer's first boss, way back, reportedly saw a whole wall of files on American citizens at the CIA Counterintelligence Center.
Which is illegal. The CIA is barred from domestic spying like that.
Strictly forbidden by law. So the question for you, the listener, to really ponder is this. If that was happening then, and considering how few people were truly held accountable for the illegal torture program years later, what proportion of the deep state's activities, the actions of these unaccountable figures, remains secret, potentially illegal even today? How much do we still not know?
A very chilling question indeed. That brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you for joining us.